try to close it right there on the spot.
So try to give a price right there.
One
and
call
say,
closed
can
right on
we
the
do
spot.
the job?
Absolutely, yes. If nothing more, you're going to get some objections, and that is when sales begins.
My name is John Giacato, and I'm your host. We've got Ken Biggs from CNB Property Maintenance here today, and Ken runs the business with his wife Kathy, and they're a small property maintenance company that specializes in resolving yard drainage issues, but also they do tree removal, landscape design, and landscape construction. Ken, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, John.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
So my first question to you is, tell me a little about CNB Property Maintenance.
Oh, let's see. Oh gosh, we formed the company almost 4 years ago now. It'll be 4 years in July, actually. So about 3.5 years. Gosh, we started out just really replacing lawns, doing hedges, a little bit of tree work and stuff like that. Really, having much of a direction, just kind of getting a feel, seeing which way to kind of take it. What equipment really we needed. That was kind of the big thing is being a small company, we don't have an unlimited checkbook, so we kind of had to take it and see what was going to be our best investment when it came down to equipment. So really we took probably about a good 6 months. And I mean I mean I could go into stories about me and Kathy like using hand trucks trying to take trees down. I mean, it's like there's some classics. So I mean, we went at it. I think the first drain we did, we dug by hand.
Yeah.
Here in Connecticut, it was like 42 inches deep at the end of it. We built our fire pit with all of the rocks that came out of it. And it's like a 12 or 15 foot fire pit. It's huge. So yeah, we just wanted to see where to put the money at, which way to kind of take it. I mean, really, at first we kind of took off in trees and stuff like that. We were always kind of offering like the width of stuff, but
Yeah.
we started taking off in trees. But I mean, last maybe 18 months in trees has been extremely competitive. And like you saw this spring, it can get a little expensive to get in front of the people you need to get in front of. So. It's been an extremely wet year this year. Drainage has been kind of going off, so we've kind of taken the ball and run with that, and it's been pretty successful so far. So we can't complain, and just trying to kind of maybe keep the doors open and kind of see which way which way the wind blows, in the
Right.
next 12 months. So
Yeah. And you've taken with your business, you've seems to have taken kind of a more generalist approach, right? You're doing a lot of different stuff rather
Oh,
than
yeah.
specializing.
It's funny that you say because it's named property maintenance. That was we first started out. I'm like, we got to pick something that kind of sets us apart. It was all landscapers and lawn maintenance and lawn technicians and stuff like that out there as far as company names. And we decided to go with property maintenance. And we don't mow lawns, we don't plow driveways. There's like a lot of maintenance that we actually don't do. So
Right.
we get a lot of calls from people saying, hey, I want to get somebody set up for mowing, and I'm typically referring a lot of those folks to other people. But we have the ability to kind of go in that direction if we need to by
Right.
setting it up that way, where it's more of we take the property from a customer centered approach, kind of see where their aches and pains are, see how much of that we can encompass, and the business that we can offer, and what solutions we can offer, and we kind of run with it from there. And if we can do it, cool. If we can't, we have been fortunate enough to set some channels up of referral and stuff. Sometimes we had to struggle to fill something, but we've been able to kind of fill it and take it from that holistic approach, and it's been pretty successful. So we can't complain.
Right.
We're definitely staying busy, and now, gosh, getting you on board the last 12 months and it's been like cool. The final piece of the puzzle is kind of fitting in. So
Right.
you never know. Another 12 months, you might see us split with another crew or grow a little bit to get there, but we're still still in that running. We're actually just getting the lungs full of air running actually. So,
Right,
yeah.
right, right. So, you kind of have a unique background because you come from a sales background, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
that's unique because a lot of people in this industry, in the landscaping industry, they're not coming from a sales background.
Oh
They're
yeah.
usually coming from a trades background or some other type of background.
Yeah.
How has that kind of helped you as a business having that sales experience? And maybe talk a little about the sales experience
Well, I
you've
mean, it's actually been pretty good asset and stuff. I mean, the old adage, gosh, that I learned, way on early is kind of act as if sometimes. And, sometimes when you're in sales, you can say yes a little bit and have that little bit of act as if side. So, again, if we need to fill a gap somewhere and get something filled, we do. But yeah, it's been kind of an asset for us. It's been something that I've been able to kind of lean back on and be able to kind of really accelerate things. I mean, it's easy to say yes. Sometimes it's the tough part is coming through with that yes. I mean, so you never want to kind of get ahead of yourself, get too big of a yes involved. So
right. So you're conflicted, right? Because not only are you selling the job, but you're also fulfilling the job,
oh yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
whereas if you were purely doing sales and
Oh
purely
yeah,
booking jobs, it would be
yeah.
different than if
It-
you're the one who has to deal with
yes.
potentially the problem customer, the potentially the problem job,
Oh
or
yeah. I mean, if you the oversell really. I mean, if it can come in, it's kind of a catch 22 because I mean, there are times when we have to really rein it in. Sometimes myself, and be like, hey, listen, there's some things that are outside of our scope of what we're going to take care of. So, having that ability to understand your capabilities,
Mhm.
not to go beyond them, because
Yeah,
it's really easy. I mean, especially where a customer's involved who may have had several issues with their house. They've had several bad um, experiences dealing
yeah,
with possible solutions for that issue, and they're worried about their investment.
right,
Things aren't going in the right direction. They're losing money, and their property's still getting damaged. So there's a big responsibility that comes along with that, being able to get the right components put together to get in front of them in the first place. So that's kind of really, it's like the anti-sales, I guess,
yeah,
so the preaching of being able to be humble and um, really, just have a spine for one, understand what your
yeah,
capabilities are, and be able to say no to a job. I mean, because again,
right.
if you have a customer that's kind of, just tossing the job at you because you've given them the sense that you can solve the issue for them. You got to remember the capabilities of being able to actually solve that issue.
Fulfill that work.
And
Yeah, yeah,
especially if you're a salesman who's not doing the actual work,
right.
because you don't understand how many times I've felt. I mean, sometimes even where I oversell myself early on, I'm like, man, I really should have charged a lot more for that. That was a lot harder
Yeah,
than what it turned out to be. And sometimes you learn the hard way. But talking with people working and stuff, and they're like, man, I've been at jobs and showed up, and the work order says one thing, and the job is obviously something different.
yeah,
And hey, lo and behold, you're trying to get a hold of a salesman, you can't get a hold of them and stuff. So, I mean, from that sales standpoint, first and foremost, you got to really come in and take it from, an ethical side, and understand the capabilities of your company, understand, being able to say no sometimes, because you can get into, a situation where customers really want you to do the work.
yeah. And a lot of times, if you're hurting for work, right,
And
it's
you
very
can be
hard to say
tempted.
no to that sale, even if it's outside of
Absolutely.
your scope of
Absolutely.
expertise, right?
But, I mean, you have to think about things like, we're in the state of Connecticut where, I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, we just dealt with somebody in the fall who tried to sue us for something that was definitely outside of scope of where we actually did work. So I hate to say it, but, people want to protect their investments. And to put it, softly. But sometimes people get a little aggressive with that, and they you go outside of your capabilities and you're not able to produce what you tell them you could produce, you could be liable for quite a bit in this state. So,
Right.
you have to be careful with, what you get yourself into.
Right.
It's like, especially with, you see like on our YouTube channel, there's a lot of jobs where it's quite extensive. You don't really see the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure if you're gonna take a jump into a different realm than you're used to, that you do a lot of research, maybe find another contractor that does that stuff and go get hired on with them or do some sub work for them. And don't be afraid to ask them to teach you how to do something.
Right.
Or go to an industry group of some sort and look for some sort of industry training. I mean, I just got contacted by a septic system. I can't remember. It was Cowra. I think it was Connecticut, something stormwater association, about doing septic systems and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Looking to get more people involved and stuff. So it's the winter, you get into doing a lot of good work during the year. You keep yourself busy. You spend some time, and when we're in between our snowstorms,
Right.
which it seems to be more and more nowadays in Connecticut. So, use that time and reinvest it and stuff. So,
Right.
learn some things, but, kind of I'm jumping all over the place,
Right.
kind of getting everywhere. Sorry about that,
No,
John.
that what you said makes sense. Do you see, like, in this industry, like, for somebody who's just starting out, like, what advice do you have from a sales perspective on how to close jobs? Do you have any advice on how people who are kind of new to the sales process, they know how to do the landscaping, they're good technically,
Yeah.
but how they can do a better job of increasing their closing ratio? Because it's not just about getting leads, it's about what percentage of those you can actually close.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of times when people get on site with a customer, something that gets lost in the whole mix is, at the end of it, is actually asking for the business. If you're already there, they're listening to you. If you can kind of get from them that they're, like kind of, liking what you're saying and everything. Don't just leave it off at, hey, I can get you a quote, I'll get back to you, I'll shoot you an email. I mean, if you've been in the field a little bit, you've been doing the work a bit, you kind of understand what you need to make. You if you take a snapshot of what it is, if you can quote like that, try to close it right there on the spot. I mean,
So try to give a price right there.
one
and
call
say,
close right
can
on
we
the
do
spot.
the job?
Absolutely. Yes. If nothing more, you're going to get some objections. And that is when sales begins. Now, you've already done the work of, bringing the data and dumping the data, answering their questions back and forth. They've got a good feeling. I'm not talking about jumping on them and molesting them until they give you a job. Like, there's a
Right.
big difference between, over chewing a piece of gum.
You don't want to burn the lead.
No,
Right.
you don't want to, shoot the prom queen out of the prom. So, like, take it easy,
Right.
but don't be afraid to ask to get the job done today. Like, let's get it booked today. That's one thing I take back from my car sales days is, what's it going to take to get this job signed today? And that word today with a little bit of pause next to it, and just look them in the eye.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised at how many people are like, oh, great, let's do it.
Yeah.
They're waiting for you to ask them. In other words, they didn't call you to their house to see your butt as you leave. So they like you. You get the feeling that they're liking what you're telling them. Don't be afraid to ask for the business right there. You'd be surprised at how many, like, big dollar jobs we've secured a deposit right on the spot for. And I'm talking $20,000 jobs. It's good feeling walking out of an appointment, with $2,000 or $3,000 in a material deposit. And yes, you leave the door open for some change. I'm not saying lock yourself into a dollar number without going back and doing some research, but don't be afraid to pick up a deposit and lock that customer into a job. Ask for the business.
Right. Right. So How is your, you know, from a sales perspective, how has your sales process evolved, over the years of running CMB? Has it evolved, or have you kind of just hit the ground running and you haven't like had to
Oh,
change your approach?
realistically, I mean, this is probably the easiest sales job I've ever had. I mean, 9 times out of 10, somebody's calling me.
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean, if you take it from the mentality of they're calling you because they have maybe done some research, you saw an ad from you, they followed that ad through the ad frame,
Yeah.
got into your actual information, looked at you, liked what they saw, and wanted to get you to actually do some work for them. They look at you more of as a trusted advisor, like you
Right.
know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
because they wouldn't call you if they didn't get that feeling in the first place.
Right.
At least the customers you want, anyways. I mean, yeah, anybody can be the lowest cutter in the barrel, but that's not going to get your company to the next level. You want the jobs that are going to pay you a decent margin, going to pay you a decent wage for the work and the intellectual property that you bring to it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I mean, this, doing websites,
Right. Yeah, a website can be a great tool to, or even an online profile, or even like a Facebook page where you're really building it out, can be a great way to kind of pre-sell,
absolutely.
develop that.
We started off on
expertise.
Facebook. And I mean,
Yeah.
when I started off on Facebook, it wasn't that, we were running out there to say, hey, I could beat everybody's price out there. You come get me. I'm blah, blah, blah. And you're going to set yourself up for a certain type of reputation when people see your brand.
Right.
And you start off the conversation when I could beat anybody's price out there. You're going to find that there's going to be an expectation set. And as you go and work and you do these jobs, well, let's just say those salespeople don't typically stay around too long when they work at the bigger companies, because their
Yeah.
margin shows when they do the numbers. In smaller companies, when it's the owner doing the work, you realize very fast. Again, take it back to those days of, earlier when I was saying we were using a hand truck, we were using shovels and pickaxes with big rocks in the ground. I mean, it was not pleasant work. Now, if you now spend all of that hard-earned money on equipment that now makes your life easier so you can be more productive, you need to charge accordingly, because if you don't, that machine is going to break down much like your body broke down.
Yeah.
And when your body breaks down, like, you don't have much left in this world. Like there's that's the be all end all you could always use is your body. So
Right. How have you made the kind of calculus between investing in equipment versus just renting the equipment? Like at what point?
I mean, it has to justify the amount of work. I mean, nothing has gotten me worse than even spending a small amount of money and watching it sit in the garage, like just sit there. Like that's like my worst thing.
Have you ever made that mistake before?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've flipped the machines over. I bought a stump grinder. I mean, and we ran it. I want to say it was probably about 6 months. Yeah, it was a whole fall season, and I think I used it 36 hours. And then I met my current guy that does stumps for me now, and his machine was twice the size of mine. He was twice the operator that I was. He's been doing it for 25 years. And I mean, he gives me a decent rate as long as I keep him going and keep his belly full. He keeps me on that rate, and it works out good for both of us. So there's no reason to have that machine. I flipped that one right over and took that money and reinvested it in something else, because it was doing nothing sitting there in the garage. I mean, if you think about 2,000 possible working hours at a bare minimum,
Yeah.
that's just regular 40-hour a week, 9 to 5 stuff.
Yeah.
40 hours a week. I mean, it was 36 hours the whole 6 months of that. So
Right.
it just didn't justify me keeping it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took a loss. Probably took maybe a $2,000 loss. We had a 52-inch Ferris mower I bought. In 3 years, I put 35 hours on the thing, mowing my own lawn.
Right.
Beautiful cut on my lawn, but I didn't need a $12,000 mower to do that. So
Right.
I took a loss doing that, got it out, but that money works harder for you in a fresh piece of equipment that you actually use.
Right.
It's not doing you any good sitting in the garage just staring back at you when you open the door like, "Hey, mower."
Right.
Hey, it's like, it's if it doesn't justify its price. Like I've got attachments for my dingo that 2 jobs a year justifies that attachment because the
Right.
jobs that I do with it are huge margin jobs. So I'm okay with that sitting over there taking a break. I'll grease it up, I'll wash it off, let it
Yeah.
sit there, oil it up so it doesn't rust. And when I need it, I'll pull it out and use it. But other stuff going to take up half the garage just sitting there a little bit of time. I mean, like I said, we went through basically we started our mowing side because our son, he was working with another company. His crew leader kind of was a bit of a sour fella,
Yeah.
and he was having a bit of a rough time with it. And he was like, you know what, I come work for you guys. And I'm like, okay. And he came over and he was used to mowing. So they were production mowing place. They were 20 lawns a day, going, cranking away. And we're like, hey, let's get you mowing. You can lead the mowing division. How's
Right.
that sounding? Needless to say, he had like 2 lawns. I think it would take him like 4 hours for the 2 lawns.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dom, you got to kind of like, and his heart was not in it. He liked the trees. He liked the
Right.
drains. He liked, the hardscaping. He liked that side of it better. So when it came down to it, he's like, yeah, I'm just not gonna mow this lawn.
Right.
So, and
Right.
I mean, you're talking a half-acre lawn for 2. I'm like, Dom, what are you doing over there, dude?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a half acre. You should be done in 15, 20 minutes tops. And it's 2 hours. He finally come back like, I'm all done. I think he like quadruple mow it, but it is what it is. He did a
Right.
really good job for them folks that year. So everybody was happy, but we took that mower and turned that money into something else. Now I got a top dresser. So when I forewent going after mats, because at the time my dingo, which has turf tracks, is 99% of the time perfectly fine, even in the mud. But we needed something when I'm digging up somebody's whole yard because I tried cutting turf like they do it on YouTube. Nah, those are staged turf jobs. Let me tell you that much, all right? Go
Yeah.
do a little research on YouTube and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There's no way in hell I'm going to a place that's inch underwater with like clumpy clover all over the place and I'm cutting that and I'm going to be able to put that back like a perfect job afterwards. It just doesn't work. So don't even try. Just dig the whole thing up, throw it back down when it's done, and top dress. Then we took the money from the mower into a top dresser. Now we have something that we put a beautiful new lawn after it
Yeah.
and we sell it as another line item, build margin, and
Right.
it just works that much better. So
Yeah.
again, you take a piece of equipment that you weren't using, you throw it into
Yeah.
something that it is working. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's keep the money moving in the garage. Don't let it sit down and get dust on it.
And don't be afraid, I guess, to change your service offering to figure
Absolutely.
out what works best for you, what's going to
Absolutely.
be the most profitable.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, some of this stuff is not rocket science. You can find a lot of the information readily available. You can, heck, you can watch videos a couple times nowadays and get a good idea of stuff. Most of the time, you can find some of the same videos that you watch in training classes on this stuff. The rest of the stuff you can kind of fill in the blanks with and again, act as if and have something to back it up. Again, either have some good insurance, have a little bit of money saved up. Like I was fortunate enough to have a little, like I took a little bit of a line of credit and let that sit for a side, like as our insurance. We had no clue what insurance needs we had at first. So we had a blanket general liability policy, which everybody knows is a little bit tough to defend things against sometimes. They're frowned upon taking a tree down, an 80-foot tree over a house, and they're not going to really pay for a limb coming down through somebody's roof. So don't try it.
Yeah.
Have that money in a bank account somewhere. If you're going to do that work, put yourself on the line. I mean, that was one of the things as a business owner that I stand firmly behind with all my customers that if something's wrong with it, you come to me first, I'll fix it. I have no problem with that. There's a problem, I want to know. That's my reputation on the line. That's my work that I'm doing. Give me the opportunity to make it right.
Yeah.
I have no problem going above and beyond on the job, after the job, during it, whenever.
Right.
That's what we pitch when we're on the job selling it in the first place. I've had to come through with that a few times. I can pull out a handful of customers' name, and thankfully it hasn't been a lot. We've been able to minimize those losses because, again, back to the beginning, we try not to go too far above over our heads. If I don't know
Right.
how to do something, I haven't done it before, I haven't been involved with it before in some way, shape, or form, I'm probably going to pay somebody to come and do it in front of me more so than just say, yeah, I could do it, and then dive
Right.
in and try. Because every time I've dove in and trying some really hard stuff, it turns out not so nice.
Do you
So
think that
let's,
diving in and trying is something that's pretty common in the landscaping industry?
yes, and
Yeah. What do you think causes that? Just lack of barriers to entry,
I
or
think low pay for one. I
yeah,
mean, that's one thing I hear and see a constant struggle as. I mean, we pay our guys very, very well. I've had one of my guys go and look elsewhere, and I mean, it's a catch-22. Sometimes it sticks me in the ass because we're good to our people, and sometimes you get taken advantage of. It's not going to stop me from being good to somebody. It's not going to make me start prejudging people before I give them the chance to show me who they are. That's one thing we like to do. It's not, I don't like to go off of hearsay sometimes. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I got 200 people telling me somebody's a murderer, I'm not going to invite them in to sleep next door to me in my bed, right? So I'm not stupid, but at the same time, people have bad days, things happen. I'm not going to let somebody hang up for one bad review or whatever. It is what it is.
right.
Things happen. May ask them about it, may look into it a little bit, but I'm not going to hold it. I'm not going to allow things to let me prejudge people on stuff. So again, pay your guys. That's
Yeah.
constantly I see this struggle between people not being able to find people to work for them.
Yeah.
And then I guarantee if I sent one of my guys over there to ask for a job, they get an application, they'll get an interview, and they'll be offered the most ridiculous amount of money. It's not like nobody's going to do this work for $15.50 an hour. It's not.
But you
gonna
see
happen.
those posts all the time on
All
like
the
Facebook
time.
groups.
All
the
the
time,
time,
yeah.
guys. You're not going to get quality people for that. You're not
But-
going to get even.
What is the reason that happens a lot? Just because there's a lot of people who are underbidding jobs and they just can't afford
It's a
to.
combination. I think it's sometimes
What do you
people.
think causes it?
I think sometimes people overextend themselves, sometimes underbid themselves. It's a little bit of a combination. We've come across quite a bit of work. We got into the drainage side of things, being more friendly to tackle the jobs that have been really hard jobs. Like people have been in there 3-4 times and they haven't been able to solve, and we solve them for them. So, I mean, we kind of got into that with a reputation of being, don't call us if you're just starting out to look because, you're not going to like our price.
Right.
Call us if you've had 3 or 4 failures and we'll do what we can. Like, we don't fix it. I'm going to tell you exactly what you got to go to do and fix it. And it's going to be beyond what I can do.
But the homeowner ends
See.
up paying more if they try 3 or 4 other people first and then they go to you. That's
Absolutely.
a lot more expensive than if they
Absolutely.
try the higher price.
Absolutely. So again, there's certain things that are more expensive. Don't be afraid of the price tag. You have to fix that or it's going to be a considerable problem for what is most people's largest investments.
How do you handle the price objections? Or do you just not because you're just.
Sometimes we don't get a chance. Sometimes they just are like, I had a sump pump job. Woman called. Sometimes on the job, I'll even make the mistake of saying a dollar figure when that's not like, I'm an external thinker. So I talk to myself a lot of times. And sometimes if I got a lot going on, I'll get twisted between the conversation I'm having with myself and what I'm having with the customer. The customer might hear some of my external thinking on the actual
You're
job.
thinking aloud, basically.
Where I haven't
Yeah.
a line item the actual job yet, where there's like, I could do a job for a certain price, but there's other factors that are going to increase the end result.
Right.
So when they hear this price on the job, they may think that you're talking about everything included. Where that's where you kind of need to be a little self-conscious, watch your mouth. Like there's some things, on sales side, you need to stay in touch with.
Yeah.
But yes, it's gosh.
It's a tough
There we
question.
go.
How do you
I get
handle
that. I get
the
that crisscross.
yeah, how do you handle the pricing is a tough question because you don't want to undercharge, right? You can't pay
Absolutely.
your guys enough. You can't build a
Absolutely.
scalable business with that. But if you go premium pricing, it's
Absolutely.
harder to get those
You're
jobs.
going to well, I think where it comes in, especially in this industry, is guys go into it with a false sense of security when it comes to sales in the first place. I've talked to numerous hundreds of people in this state that have told me they close 80 to 90%, 100% of their calls,
Really?
and that's just not possible.
I've never heard of that being
At all.
possible. Yeah.
Not from a sales standpoint at all. I mean, I've gone in sales jobs anywhere from your close ratio being 10%, I mean, 8%. I mean, some forms of marketing, you're looking at percentages of percentage points
Right.
being a huge victory. I
Yeah.
mean, like take blanket like direct mail.
Yeah.
You get point one, you're jumping for joy. I mean, think of a point one doing direct mail. That's outrageous. So I mean,
Yeah.
like there's certain things like guys are like, okay, the phone rings every time I close that job every single time they call. There's certain things you're not taking into consideration if you're closing every single call.
Well, you're either charging too little or you're just not counting the numbers correctly.
There's, I mean, and there's some guys out there that may be a sole proprietor and they're happy with making a little bit, and I don't know, maybe they're not conscious about being industry conscious, and
Yeah.
maybe they've just been working by themselves so long they don't talk to anybody else.
They don't know what the market rates are, the
They don't
market
care
value.
because the
Yeah.
phone keeps ringing and they keep working,
Yeah.
and that's good enough for them. And that isn't always the best scenario for themselves, for one, because they quickly find themselves in an undercut situation.
Right.
I mean, I've seen numerous ads out there. Guys are like, any lawn, $40 a piece, and they keep going down by $5 every time I see the ad.
Yeah.
$40, $30, 35, 30, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I cut an acre for $30 an acre, but that's some people are out there doing it. Maybe there's
Yeah.
a certain math that some people get that
Well, if you have enough lawn density, maybe that could work. But you'd have to have
it's
extreme density, right?
it's exactly like
Every house on the
everyone in
block.
the whole
Yeah.
block. I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So for drainage, right? That's a more complicated. Like everyone offers that, or a lot of landscapers offer that, but it's
yes,
hard to get it right.
yes.
Right?
Well, I think a lot of guys pinch on the design side of it. I mean, that's where it kind of goes from. Like, guys are coming more from a labor perspective on this, where they're coming from, yes, I've put in a French drain. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do downspout drains. I know how deep they
get
need
the
to go.
technical piece of it.
Absolutely. But when it comes to placing where the pop-up goes, like I've seen them placed right at foundation. I was at one yesterday, right at a foundation, West Hartford. Big, like, I mean, couple, like you're talking not a Cracker Jack house, like, $600,000-700,000 house, and there's a downspout that goes off, connects to another one, and it's right at where the three-season porch is, and there's foundation right on the other side of three-season porch. And I'm like, this is not pitched out into this, away from this side. It's literally pitched right down in where when the water comes out, it falls underneath the house and then just pools right in the little crink where underneath the three-season porch where no one can see it. And there now you end up getting folks going 2-3 years down the road. All of a sudden, when the water finally works its way down to the footer, works its way up underneath, and starts going into the house, now we have a water in the basement. I've never had water in the basement before. I even had all my downspouts taken care of 2-3 years ago. Oh, they charged me $4,000 to do my downspouts, and I get water in my basement now. And it's like, okay, well, let's go take a look at where the actual downspout is coming out.
Yeah.
No one's ever asked that before. I've had 3 other people here. It's like, no one's ever asked you to actually look at the actual problem. Like, how can they fix it if they don't know what the problem is? Like, there's just certain things you get when you're on the job and you're like, how is somebody even here yet? Like, how did somebody even give you a price if they didn't get past this point?
So there's
like,
a lot of strategy that goes into
a ton of it. I mean, it's you have to walk yourself all the way back into the customer's shoes and see the problem from their perspective.
So there's the knowing how to do the French drain, right? The technical piece. But
Yep.
then there's the knowing exactly how to position it, exactly how to do
Where
the
the water is
strategy.
coming from,
Yeah.
why it's coming from there. I mean, there's like so many different perspectives to take into account from it. It's almost impossible to just come from an installer side. Like if you're coming from a company where someone was handing you a ticket in the morning and you were just going to the job, digging out the drain, putting in the rock, putting everything back, and then leaving, you're not ready for design work. You need to do a little bit of investigation and go either work with someone who understands drainage design, and there are several people out there that do. I mean, again, I mentioned the group before. They do a very good job. It's like very similar to septic work. So there's a lot of perspectives from a gray water aspect that are like mimic stormwater. Like they're right here next to one another. And you can learn those perspectives by taking a couple classes.
Right.
You know, and they're offered like just out. And I mean, several years. I mean, I was a board member with the the PHCC in the state of Connecticut for like 3 years. I had no clue that this place even existed. So,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I've been around the state working with contractors. I've sold, you know, numerous different stuff from, you know, repair parts to supplies to insurance to business supplies to office equipment. I mean, furniture. I mean, I walk you right back, you know, it's to vehicles. I mean, it just having that aspect. I mean, now, you know, as we sit here and I list that out, really came in having a lot of those sales jobs, gave me a really good perspective of putting a business together in the first place. Because, you know, I mean, you work with all businesses selling fleet vehicles and you see it from the other side of the table 4,000 or 5,000 times. You get to understand what their aches and pains are. So now I'm on the other end of the table buying fleet equipment, going, I got to watch out for this. I got to watch out for that. I got to watch out for all that stuff that all these guys told me about for all that time. All right, let me try to avoid it the best I can.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I guess, you know, in all those compartments of sales, you know, breaking it apart and laying it down, it was kind of a 20 or 25 year hard knocks training school for running a business. I mean, you know, every one of them was basically put yourself in a business owner's seat and try to see, you know, and coming from that side of sales perspective, starting off doing sales, you really don't know what owners feel like because you don't own a business unless you take the sales on like you're running the company and you're running that, it's your business. And that's kind of the hardest thing coming from an owner's standpoint who is hiring salespeople who wants to pay them really good. You know, when you don't see that capability in someone, it's like, all right, do they show the signs that they can actually, you know, they can actually do that? I mean, you know, they can actually acquire that skill in order to go out and meet. I mean, it's tough to sell. Yeah. I mean, that's why most people, especially in this industry, fall back to that 80, 90, 100% close rate. And they're happy with it because when someone starts picking you apart, you get into someone who's maybe they're a C-level executive somewhere and they're used to breaking down budgets and they want you to itemize that bill. That you itemize that quote out. I mean, you made them pay $500 to get that itemize that quote out.
We're talking about you go and you bid on a job.
Absolutely.
They approach it differently.
Absolutely. They may approach it differently than someone who may, you know, be a union worker in like local 478 doing heavy equipment operator like my father was. They're not going to come from the same perspective. They're going to look installation side. They may be looking like you like there's a lot that goes into sales, you know, a lot of like even back to my degree, you know, in criminal justice is I went to school to be a interrogator and I kind of switched to kind of being a hostage negotiator. And I was like, I don't even want to do this. I could see where the whole industry's going. Yeah. So how the hell am I going to use this for, you know, I got to my 5th year finishing the second side of a degree, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to use this in real life now? So,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, there's a lot of similarities in cost of negotiation and communication and sales,
absolutely.
right? Being able to have those communication
Absolutely.
skills and
Absolutely. And
yeah,
that's, again, we get back to that breakdown, and somebody gets into that and they go, holy shit, I don't know how to talk to these people.
yeah. You do a
So
lot of work trying to build rapport with customers when you're on a call.
absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
do you have any tips
Yeah.
for that for somebody who's trying to kind of
Oh gosh,
get better at?
do a lot of reading. Like, I mean, everybody's got their morning ritual. You sit on that throne and read when you're sitting there. Don't play with your phone and look at Facebook.
Why is that? Why
Don't
does
waste
reading
your
help?
time. Pick topics that you can talk to smart people about. Because, I mean, even if you sound stupid when you first start doing it, at least you're now gaining another skill of being able to talk to somebody like outside your comfort zone that you wouldn't normally sit down at your local breakfast joint and have a conversation
So
with.
you go to somebody's house and you're gonna sell them on a
I'm
yard
gonna
drainage
they're
solution.
gonna buy us first. I mean,
Yeah.
half of them now, as we're building reviews and building content online, they're getting a sense. We're getting senses that they're getting to know us a good piece before we even get there. And
Right.
then when we get there and we start talking, and they see me with my big beard and my wife
Yeah.
with her little hat on, and we start talking and
Yeah.
chuckling and doing what they see on video or what they might have saw in something that you did on Google. And they're like, you see them smile, and you're like, all
Right.
right, that's a selling, how would you say, a down low selling indicator.
You're building that rapport. You're getting them to know,
Absolutely.
like, and trust
A
you so
feel
that they
good
wanna.
sign.
Yeah.
It's a
Do you
feel good sign.
do you
Yes.
think in general landscapers do a good job on the sales side, or do you
No,
think they're?
no.
What do you think
You
the
should hear
biggest?
some of the stories I hear from customers, and I mean,
So
we get
so
a
tell
lot
me
of
about that.
callers. I mean, we get a lot of callers that, for instance, we went and did a job last week. The woman said, she's like, I knew the guy. I mean, I think he had a lot of stuff going on, blah blah blah. He just, not a very good communicator whatsoever. And this, again, coming from that labor side, and this is, I'm sitting here talking to my dad, who, like, I mean, sometimes it would be like trying to freaking, be trying to chisel a piece of ice to get him to start talking because
Yeah.
his mind was on something else. It's just the way his mind worked, and that was a lot of labor-minded people, and that's okay. It's perfectly fine. Very intelligent, but sometimes it's just he's in his own little world, and it's tough for him to get talking to somebody. To break out of that shell is now a new skill that you acquire, having that roadblock, so to speak, in sales. You get there and you just, I could do it. Yeah. What'd they charge you? That was $100 less. All right, I'll see you next Tuesday.
So you don't see a lot of rapport building
No,
in this
no.
industry.
They just come up. Yes, I could do that. What do I need to do? Yeah, I could do that. What'd they charge you? Or what are they telling you for a price? Yeah, I could beat that. How's $500 less? How's $200 less? And who knows? These people may have paid for something elsewhere. Other
Right.
people come up. I mean, when we first started off, I was offering, free. Goes to our conversation pre-recording. Was like, I used to offer free estimates.
Yeah.
We don't offer free estimates anymore because I found myself walking around a lot of yards
Doing a
telling
lot of unpaid
a
consulting,
lot of
right?
people
Yeah.
how to fix their stuff, and then when they saw my price tag, they walked away.
Yeah.
So now they have to pay me to get that information in the first place, or we don't talk.
Right.
And they can go ask the guy who walks up and goes, yeah, I could do that. What'd they tell you? French train? No, I don't know what my job is. And then we get a call back 2 weeks later going, yeah, I called several people. I'll pay you the money.
Right.
And it's like, why would they tell you? And you're like, oh, well, this is, and it's like, okay, well, let's take it from step one. Let's
Yeah.
start over. But yes, I mean, especially, yeah,
Building rapport is
it
important.
is very important.
Not doing a
yes.
ton of unpaid consulting
Yes.
is
No,
important too.
very, very important. Is like, at first, like if you are a new designer and you understand the design side of it, you understand what you're getting yourself into. Because again, there was a little bit of trial and error here and there. And there were a couple times I was on a job, like, there's no way in hell I charge enough for this job. Like I'm halfway. Next day, I'm like, I'm a third of what I should have been. like literally. Not many, thankfully. You know, it's like jobs like that can put people out of business.
Yeah.
If like I didn't work in sales, I didn't have a little bit of cushion here and there before I started this adventure, it wouldn't have been an adventure. It would have been a real quick tailspin to me, basically in the cheese line. I mean, going and putting my resume out again after COVID stopped, you
Right.
know?
Right. So, what advice would you give to the aspiring landscaping business owner who wants to start their own business, who's kind of on the fence about it, who's just trying to make that jump into it? Do you have any advice for somebody like
Don't
that?
be afraid of hard work. Like just enjoy hard work, because whether you're doing it in your head, like up, I mean, it took me a long when my like to give an example, I think it took me when I did the first website I told you about way long time ago.
Yeah.
It was, I want to say, maybe a 3 or 4 week process for me
Yeah.
to do. It was up late at night doing, finding pictures, doing all kinds of stuff. Try, you know, it's, you want it to be, you're putting your best foot forward. You don't want
Yeah.
to put a piece, you know, excuse me, you know, for less of a term, but you don't want to put a piece of shit out there and
Right.
let anybody step in it. You know, you want to go out and put your best foot forward. You know, don't be afraid of hard work, because that's what it's going to be. Understand it's going to be hard work. Don't think you just walk into this. I mean, even guys like coming from a mowing perspective, like I could just undercut these lawns $5 a piece, and it's going to be, you know, okay, I'll buy a couple used things, and by the end of the year, I'll go ahead and have some new equipment too, or I'll have. It takes time to build credit.
Ken, I can't thank you enough for coming on my podcast. It was awesome to hear your story, and I thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you having me there, John. Anytime you ever want to have me back, feel free.
I appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right.
Have
Talk
a
to you
good
later.
one.
Thanks, Ken.
Appreciate it.
Bye.